stimulus. So what they did is they trained these monkeys to look out for differences in stimuli. So when there was a different sound played than what had been previously played, the monkeys would trigger that they knew that something was different, and they would be rewarded with a snack. And what they found is that there were structural brain changes in the monkeys who were able to pay attention and note these subtle but important differences in the stimulus that they were being exposed to. So the fact that they were more focused and paying more attention actually created structural brain changes, not just the subjective improvement in memory, which would be difficult, we assume, to determine in a monkey because we don't speak their language, but actual structural brain changes were noted. So what was determined is experience coupled with attention leads to physical changes in the structure and future functioning of the nervous system. So according to Dr. Merzenich, this leaves us with a clear physiological fact in his opinion. Moment by moment, we choose and sculpt how our ever-changing minds will work. We choose who we will be the next moment in a very real sense. And these choices are left embossed in physical form on our material selves. And he published this back at UCSF after this brain study on monkeys. So we know that the universe is repeatedly recreated every moment, that we're basically recreating our experience in every now moment. And these studies are beginning to give us some scientific evidence that this is in fact what happens. So in the field of quantum physics, we're beginning to understand that we actually create the universe over and over and over again every moment. And it appears that our memory is exactly the same. We literally choose and sculpt how our minds will work moment to moment. Not how they're working in the moment, but how they will work in the future. So these exercises, brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, reading about new things, problem solving, playing 3D video games of all things, helps us to sculpt who we will be in the next moment. It plans our future for us. So it's extremely important. Dr. Joe Dispenza says that memory cannot be stored without focused attention. And this is based on many, many studies now. So in other words, we can look at this from the backside. We can say that distractions and lack of focus deteriorate memory. In this age of information overload and distraction, this is extremely important to note. It's important to maintain focus. If you get used to the activity and are able to do it without thinking, then that's not good enough. So once you acclimate to an activity, you need to change it up or do something else so that you're maintaining your focus on it. Because if that stimulus isn't maintained, that neuroplasticity or those connections begin to deteriorate and the memory for that activity starts to get lost. It's like working out. You can't just go to the gym one time, build up a muscle, and expect it to stay that way, right? As soon as you stop exercising that muscle, it begins to deteriorate. So this is no different. So think of your brain as a muscle. You've got to go to the gym almost daily. You have to be active daily. You have to be focusing and paying attention daily. Studies at Harvard years ago showed structural brain changes. I believe this was in 2012. Even in novice meditators, so people that didn't even know how to meditate, who were taught very quickly to meditate, experienced structural brain changes based on functional MRI studies. So they did scans of their brains before and after they meditated for 20 minutes, and they found structural changes in the brain. So in other words, demonstration of this neuroplasticity. So it is very possible and really not even that difficult to maintain brain health if you know what to do. So why is our conventional model not discussing this? It's up to us really to take care of ourselves in this evolving and changing world. You got to be outside the box. You have to think outside the box. You have to know how to look for the right information and how to obtain that right information and get guidance. And again, I strongly encourage anyone who is concerned about brain health to enlist the assistance of a board-certified integrative medical doctor who will be able to guide you through what can often be a very confusing landscape. So what causes memory loss? Basically lack of focus and distractions. Of course, it's not quite that simple. There are other things. So lack of focus and distraction is a sign of stress. When we're not stressed, we tend to be more focused. We tend to be more alive, so to speak. We tend to be more in tune with the environment. When we're stressed, we lose that focus. When we're stressed, we also send signals down into the body, into the physical structure of the body that causes deterioration on a physical level as well. So stress is spiritual, psychological, as well as physical. And it impacts all three axes. So it's important to look at all three axes when we talk about memory loss or any condition. So is there evidence that nutrition can assist in protecting brain health? The European Journal of Neurology published a study in 2009 concluding that vitamin C and vitamin E were protective against oxidative stress that leads to brain cell death. They also determined that omega-3 fatty acids and B vitamins show protective effects against Alzheimer's dementia. We haven't really looked at too many vitamins yet, or minerals for that matter, or antioxidants for memory. So the truth is we haven't really looked, so we don't really know. So we must assume that more critical nutrients are necessary to keep brain health optimized, to keep brain cells alive, to control the inflammation that causes those brain cells to malfunction. This goes back to the critical Krebs cycle that we talked about in podcasts before, and the mitochondria inside of our cells, the energy-making factories in all of our cells, including our brain cells. So again, remember that our cells have to make their own energy. So when you eat your food, you mechanically break it down. Enzymes help you break it down even more. They become microscopic, super tiny. They get absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract into the bloodstream, make it out to all the different cells in the body. Once those proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants get into the cells have to actually make energy out of that. And so, again, there are mechanisms inside, little structures called mitochondria inside of all the cells that literally just make energy in the form of what we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That energy is then exchanged for body function. So there are trillions of chemical reactions that happen throughout the body, including in those brain cells, that keep the brain doing all the amazing things that it's supposed to do each and every day. And that relies on the production and utilization of energy in the brain cells. So those cells have to get the proper nourishment, then they have to convert that nourishment into energy, and then they have to use that energy to power body function. In other words, thinking processes, memory formation, and all these things. So when we come back, we'll talk about what more you can do to protect yourself, protect your family members. Perhaps you have an aging parent or a couple of aging parents that you're concerned about and you'd like to help them to stay independent, to enjoy, their golden years. When we come back, we'll give you a lot more tips on how to keep your brain health optimized in the 21st century, how to find the information that you need. Thank you for joining me here on Awaken Wellness with Milen Riob, MD, right here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 833-220-1200. We'll be right back.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Milen Riob, MD. Tune in every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern Time with live shows on the first and third mornings when you can call in and ask Dr. Milan the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Milan is the medical director of the Ria Bay Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit riabayintegrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
Edesia is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world. Through the manufacture of Plumpy Nut and other nutrient-rich, peanut-based, ready-to-use foods, Edesia has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join Edesia's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit edesiaglobal.org.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back to Awakened Wellness with Milan Ria of AMD. I'm your host, Dr. Milan, and today we're discussing Alzheimer's dementia, how to lower your risk safely and naturally. So in our first segment, we talked about conventional diagnosis of Alzheimer's dementia. We talked about what it is, how it's impacting our country and our loved ones. And we began to have a discussion about the fact that this condition is actually very, very preventable. And today I'd like to give you a lot more tools that you can practice with your loved ones, with yourself, even with your children. It's important to get our kids to really begin to understand that being distracted is not a good thing, to teach them how to stay focused, how to relax, how to mitigate the impact of stress and not to allow the distractions to cause them to be, stressed. Of course, that's easier said than done, but giving them some good tools like meditation and heart math, being out in nature, limiting screen time on TVs and computers. These are going to go a long way towards preventing a lot of conditions, including Alzheimer's and even attention deficit disorder, which is kind of a little bit of an Alzheimer's in kids, if you will. They can't focus. They have difficulty in school. They're hyperactive. They have behavioral changes. There are some similarities. They have trouble remembering and focusing. Obviously not to the extreme of someone with Alzheimer's, but there are a lot of common factors brought about by the ability to be easily distracted. So hopefully we'll get you a lot more useful information today, and please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you, any questions or comments that you may have. Our number is 833-220-1200. We do have one question from a listener. She wanted to know how much aerobic exercise is needed to help prevent memory loss. Approximately 30 minutes a day. Moderate. It doesn't have to be vigorous. And I would recommend that you change it up. Don't do the same thing all the time because your body will get used to that. It will acclimate and you won't have to focus anymore and it won't be as useful. So switch it up. You can go for a power walk. You can swim. You can ride your bike. Just do different things. 30 minutes is really all that would be necessary at a moderate pace. So we talked about nutrition, and we talked about some studies that were done showing that vitamin C and E, as well as omega-3 fatty acids and B vitamins, protect the brain, protect cells from dying in your brain. We also talked about the fact that we really just haven't looked very closely enough to see what other nutritional elements would be useful to incorporate here. We talked about, again, how cells have to make and utilize their own energy in exchange for their function. So brain cells are no different. So how is it or why is it that brain cells would not get their share of energy to the point where they would literally die? Like what's happening? There's a lack of focus and distraction, granted, but what else is happening? In my book, The Tao of Integrative Medicine, I talked about how the body itself is on a food chain and that if there's not enough supply of nutrients for the body to utilize due to increased stress or perhaps a gastrointestinal